الله يا هلا وسهلا فيكم من جديد وبجميع الحاضرين معنا. أتمنى منكم الآن تستعدون لرحلة مع الجمال، رحلة لحاضنة الجمال الطبيعي والتراث الفريد. إلهام، دعم، تمكين، كلها كلمات تتفرد في العلا. المشهد الفريد لكل فنان وصانع أفلام يقدمها لكم ساري نظمي، مدير قائد إدارة أصحاب المصلحة في الهيئة الملكية لمحافظة العلا. حيوه.
طيب، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. حضرة السيدات والسادة، قبل 3 سنوات بادرت الهيئة الملكية لمحافظة العلا إلى إطلاق فيلم العلا من أجل الدفع بالصناعات الإبداعية في المملكة العربية السعودية، بحيث تتمكن من المنافسة على الصعيد العالمي عبر تأسيس وجهة دولية لقطاع الأفلام في العلا. وقد حققت فيلم العلا نمواً متسارعاً لتدعم بذلك نشأ القطاع السينمائي في المملكة، ومنذ تأسيسها استطاعت أن تحقق نمواً متسارعاً لتدعم بذلك صناعة الأفلام السعودية في مسارها التصاعدي. ومواقعنا الأثرية تعتبر بطبيعة الحال خلفيات رائعة لتصوير الأفلام، وهناك أنظمة في المنطقة أحد أهدافها حماية هذه المواقع أثناء التصوير. وحتى اليوم استضافت العلا نحو 700 يوم إنتاج سينمائي، بما في ذلك أفلام عالمية مثل قندهار الذي سيكون عرضه الأول في شهر مايو المقبل، والذي يمثل دور البطولة فيه النجم جيرارد باتلر. وتم تصوير أول فيلم روائي لصانع الأفلام السعودي توفيق الزايدي بعنوان نورة، وهو أول فيلم روائي يصور في العلا ويضم ممثلين سعوديين فقط، علما أن السعوديين يشكلون أيضا ما يزيد عن 40% من طاقم العمل. ومن الإنتاجات التلفزيونية التي جرى تصويرها في العلا المسلسل البريطاني إكسبيديشن مع ستيف باكشال، وأفلام ناشونال جيوغرافيك الوثائقية، إضافة إلى الإعلانات واللقطات الترويجية وجلسات التصوير والأفلام القصيرة. أواخر العام الماضي بدأت فيلم العلا العمل على إنشاء مجمع استوديوهات مساحته 30,000 متر مربع، من شأنه تلبية الطلب المتنامي على التصوير في العلا. هذا المجمع العصري المتكامل سوف يستهل المرحلة التالية من مسيرتنا التصاعدية كمركز إقليمي للقطاع السينمائي، فهو يضم مساحة 12 كيلومتراً مربعاً من مواقع التصوير الخارجية التي تستعرض الجمال الطبيعي والتراث العريق للعلا، التي تبدو من خلالهما وكأنهما توجد على كوكب آخر. فهناك الكثبان الرملية الحمراء والسوداء والصفراء، والتكوينات الصخرية والجبال ومجاري الأنهار والوديان. ويقع المجمع الجديد على مسافة 14 دقيقة من مساكن فيلم العلا التي تحوي 300 غرفة ومطعماً ومرافق ترفيهية ومساحات مكتبية للعاملين في مجال الإنتاج السينمائي. ويبعد 20 دقيقة من مطار العلا الذي افتتحت فيه مؤخراً حظيرة للطائرات الخاصة للشخصيات المهمة. إن هدفنا الأول الآن هو توفير تجربة احترافية ودية سلسة ومعقولة الكلفة لضيوفنا من صناع ومنتجي الأفلام السينمائية، بحيث تكون سمتها الأبرز متعة العمل والإقامة في ربوع العلا على مدار السنة. والآن دعونا نلقي نظرة على جمال العلا المذهل والذي عليكم أن تروه كي تصدقوه.
And action.
والآن اسمحوا لي أن أقدم لكم جلسة حوارية بعنوان Filming Stories in العلا. ريبيكا فوت، شان مارتن، ديرك فيرهاي، آدم فورد تحاورهم تين باسكو في حكاية التصوير عن العلا.
Welcome to our panelists this evening. Thank you for being here. I thought we might just start with an introduction to what you do and
Shane Martin. I'm the owner and executive producer of Boomtown Productions, based in Dubai, Cape Town, and London. And I was the executive producer on The Lost Treasures of Arabia, the National Geographic documentary shot at Alula.
My name is Rebecca Foote. I'm the director of Archaeology and Cultural Heritage Research for the Royal Commission for Alula, and acted as something of a content consultant for this documentary.
I'm Dietrich Fierheer, and I'm a film director. One of the pieces I did is the film about Alula that we're going to discuss tonight. And that is screening tonight at 10 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken.
10:30.
Yeah, so I did that, and amongst other things, also commercials and feature films. But today we're going to talk about the documentary.
My name is Adam Ford. I'm the communications and content expert for the Cultural Heritage Department of the Royal Commission for Al Ula, and I provide support on projects that range through documentary and film to publicity pieces and short video.
Great. And as we saw from the video just now, building on some of the beautiful visuals from the video at Al Ula, what are some of the most unique aspects of filming at Al Ula?
I'll take that first. I mean, the first most incredible aspect of filming at Al Ula is what an incredible place it is, what an astonishingly beautiful, inspiring location, steeped in ancient history, lots of which is yet to be discovered. And from my point of view, having filmed all over the world, it's just one of the most inspiring places I've been, and I think it's got a great future in the film industry. And we had great fun and discovered a lot making this documentary for the Royal Commission and National Geographic.
Yeah, I agree on that, and it was lovely to always also use it as a backdrop for some of the parts that we were filming. I mean, it was obviously we followed the archaeological dig season, so it was in that, but also in parts that we called recreations. So basically within the documentary, there are like atmospheric pieces where we try to recreate history. That's always a very tricky part, but what really helped in conveying that in a very realistic way was the settings that we had. I mean, the nature, as Shane describes it, is beautiful, but also what I find mesmerizing, and it's still one of my favorite sets in Al Ula, is the Old Town. It's a dream for a filmmaker because it's basically your movie backlot as it was 2,000 years ago. So it was our playground to play around with soldiers and amongst other things. Yeah.
And what were some of the challenges of filming in a live archaeological excavation site?
I guess that's also for me. Well, the first, it's funny because you go to a set, I also call a documentary a set, and you have expectations. We're gonna film it like this, like that. First day, the first speech you get is, here you can stand, and all the rest you can't stand. Those are your limits. And watch out, because everything might crumble down. So you could basically do nothing anymore. I'm exaggerating, of course, but those are the rules. So it was clear that archaeologists were the boss, and I had to adapt, which I was not used to, but slowly we found a mutual ground, and we managed to make something very nice, I think, which I'm very proud of.
I have to imagine from a story perspective, it can be a little challenging to craft the story around an active archaeological dig, meaning you don't know what you're going to get when you're filming on a given day. You don't know if there's going to be a big discovery or if it's going to be the same thing as it was, 3 days ago. So how did you navigate that?
I mean, first thing is that one of the first thing they told is like, in the last 5 years we didn't find anything. So then you hope, okay, this year I hope it's great because we're going to build stories around it. So we kind of knew what they were looking for, but it could also turn the other way. On a daily basis, we were, and the production team, in contact with the archaeologist to say, if ever you're close to find something, just call us, we're 5 minutes away, and then we'll be ready to film. So that's basically, so it was exciting until the end. I mean, I'm not want to give any spoilers away, but we do discover something in the end of the film. And also, like in reality, until the last 2 days, we were not sure that we would discover it. So we were as euphoric as the archaeologist.
And
The tension on the set was as much as is real on the set as it was in the film.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there was a particular civilization you focused on, Dedan, correct? So can you tell us a little bit about the Dadanites and how they lived, and just give us a little overview for people who may not have seen the film yet?
I think historically speaking, it's
So the Dedanites and Lichianites are two successive kingdoms that lived in El Ula and made this place Dedan their capital in the first millennium BCE. So from about what we know, 900 to 100 BCE, and it's just before the Nabateans, who you might know more about because of the World Heritage Site of Hegra. That was the subsequent dynastic ruling kingdom.
And I hear that there has been a second episode filmed recently, maybe about Hegra. Maybe can you share a little sneak peek about that?
Well, you've just finished wrapping, haven't you, on that, and doing the
couple
edit.
of weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah, so the completion of the Dedan episode was last year, and this year, Dierk and his team have been busy working with Leila Nachmi, who is the director of the Hegra excavations for 20 years, focusing on this remarkable site, with the first World Heritage Site in Saudi Arabia, which was the southern, probably most significant city of the Nabatean kingdom from about 100, 200 BCE up till about 2 to 300 BCE, would you say that? And so an occupation of 300 to 400 years, and when it was taken over by the Roman Empire in the 1st century AD. But it's probably mostly known by the beautiful rock-carved tombs that surround the site. But there's more to it, isn't there, Dierk, than just funerary tomb monuments?
I mean, everybody, by now, I think everybody has heard about El Ula, and the first thing that comes in mind are those monumental tombs, which are amazing and which we filmed and which we include in our stories. But there's so much more, especially even Leila that Adam mentioned. She has been excavating for 20 years, so she has been and studying them even for a longer period. But just that, the richness of information that she has and the stories that she has was amazing. So it made my job, at least, much easier the second time around.
But I think Dierk's being a little bit modest, because a lot of the stories in archaeology are complicated, and they are data heavy. You could almost say intractable or very difficult to understand. And so to tease out stories that are going to resonate with a broad audience isn't easy. And I think that's probably the thing that I'd see that as one of the biggest challenges of filming around El Ula. Some areas of the world, you find it difficult to find enough information to fill a long-form film like this. In El Ula, the difficulty is that you have so much information and so many stories that you have to tease out how you're going to tell it in a way that doesn't confuse but educates.
Yeah, and I think especially in the film that we made we knew from the start that it's the platform is National Geographic, so that means the ambition is to reach a global audience of millions and not necessarily experts. So in that sense, I always use it if I needed to understand. And sometimes I also told I didn't understand, so we need to find a way to make it clear. So if I understand, the rest of the audience will understand as well. And eventually, I think we did. And yeah, I hope that everybody can have a look tonight, because I think it's worthwhile.
When we were speaking earlier about the filming of the first episode of Lost Treasures, you mentioned that you also discovered some other stories about nature and some wildlife. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's true. So this episode was not the first time that I was around to film in Alula. We also captured what we call short forms. Basically, I call them mood films of 1 minute that try to capture one aspect or different aspects of Alula. One story in particular was quite a challenge to make, but it was a very interesting one. It teased me from the start. It was about the Arabian leopard, the animal which is close to extinction. So they are having these special programs in order to reintroduce it back into nature, which is, I think, Rebecca, a very long process. I think it takes years and years.
They have to have enough of a quarry of the cubs that are born and come to full life before they would release them in the wild, so it could sustain itself.
Yeah, exactly. And what we filmed was a part, so because, and I don't want to go too technical, but one of the first things they do is first they need to release prey back in nature before they can release the animals, because otherwise they can't survive. So we were part in one specific aspect that was very, how should I say, fragile, in the sense that we filmed the releases of ibexes and gazelles. And imagine it's already super stressful for the scientists that happened, because they want that to be smooth and successful for the animals to be released. So then you have us, a film crew, coming in. So that's obviously a bit of a challenge, and then because we need to find a way to film it, and the only way was to set up multiple cameras up in the mountains with these like huge zoom lenses. You've all seen them on like sport events. That were the kind of gear that we used. And in that sense, we could be very close to the animals without us even noticing. So that was remarkable. And I was glad for them. Their mission was successful, and also then that short form turned out to be very beautiful.
Mm-hmm. We talked earlier about some unknown aspects about Al Ula. I think there seems like there was a rich cultural tradition of poetry, arts, maybe some Arabic writing. Can you share a little bit about that, maybe Rebecca or Adam?
Sure, especially in the early Islamic period, there was poetry, pre-Islamic poetry, and some of it is known to have been written and recited there. Also, there were other early Arabic writing. There are a number, thousands of early Arabic inscriptions, and in fact, Nabatean language, even though the Romans took over the Nabatean Empire, the culture carried on, and the language in particular carried on, and the Nabatean script is the immediate precursor to Arabic. So people who can read, for example, Kufic, can usually read Nabatean too.
The thing I find fascinating, actually, to follow on from what Rebecca's saying, is that the distant past can be quite abstract. It's very difficult for people to empathize or have a kind of like an emotional connection to something that's a couple of thousand years old. But what Rebecca's saying is that and it strikes with me, is that there is in Al Ula there is a really clear connection that you can follow back, a thread that you can follow back through the language of Arabia, back 2,000 years to the Nabateans and the traditions of poetry and writing in Al Ula, which is visible, well, the writing is visible on many rock formations, but the tradition of poetry, my understanding of talking to someone the other day was that it's still a very passionately followed tradition in Al Ula, particularly amongst women of Al Ula as poets. So I think the challenge which Dirk and Shane took on and have been successful is bringing the past and making it relevant for today's populations. And I think otherwise it's a bit of a lost opportunity if you don't try and do that with film. And that's why historic and heritage films and documentaries like this do resonate, I think, if they're done well.
And I'd just like to add that as filmmakers, we were so welcomed by the Royal Commission and by Film Al Ula, who made our jobs a lot easier than they otherwise could have been. And I've nothing but good to say about the place as a general shooting location. I think you could, create anything there. You could shoot any sort of film there. But we're uniquely privileged to have been brought in to help bring some of these ancient civilizations to life, because they're not well known. And I think that even the people of Saudi Arabia, like the people of the world, are not aware of the historical significance of these various different civilizations. And I was actually thinking, is it because the place was so astonishingly beautiful that led to the creation of these civilizations in this place? Because, I mean, there's civilization everywhere in the Middle East, but, there was, it's just such an astonishingly unique, interesting looking place that, was that related to why there was, how many kingdoms? How many different, there's 4 at least, right?
There are 3 kingdoms, but many civilizations.
Yes.
So, I completely agree, and that's one reason why the arts are also being promoted today in Al Ula, to carry on that tradition, that it was such an inspiring place that, for example, even though the language of the tombs at Hegra of the Nabateans looks very similar to Greco-Roman language with pediment, and it's carved rather than built like the Pantheon. And so to be responding to the place so profoundly, but using whatever language internationally, is, I think, something that was always rich in Al Ula and always can be.
And archaeologically, and I should know the answer to this, but was it more verdant? Was there more water there back in the day? Was that what led to the creation of all these, to the flourishing of all these civilizations?
Actually, at the time of these kingdoms, that what's called the Holocene humid period would have already passed. It would already be becoming quite arid. But yes, about 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, it was more of a savanna, Greenland, but it was elsewhere in the country. I think it's really the landscape there, whether it's arid or wet. It's so beautiful with those sandstone mountains and then the cultivated valley. That contrast, don't you think, is a lot of what makes it so striking?
Yeah.
And talking about water in particular, on the second episode, we discovered something, or Leila pointed out, that I didn't notice before, and I found it so ingenious how these people were already very smart architects, in the sense that on one of those beautiful places, beautiful facades, tombs, if we go in Jabal Idlib, if you go around, then there are these carved canals that they use for as water drain, water management, and in order to get them. So that I found surprising, and you have there's a lot of that. So but that's coming up in the second episode.
Right.
I'm already spoiling it.
I think there's an interesting interaction between landscape and civilization. I think people wouldn't be there basically if there wasn't water. And that's the basics. The trade through the Hijaz was a bonus, I think, in many ways. But there's an interaction that is interesting to explore, is how much the landscape affected the people who lived within it, whether that was the availability of, you know, building materials or whatever, or was it an inspiration for art, for color, for to attract people into the landscape that perhaps would have gone to another oasis somewhere, but really made the Alula Valley their home because of, you know, of what the landscape could provide, philosophically or you know, intellectually, as well as the day-to-day requirements. So I don't know whether we could actually ever you know, identify that in the archaeological record, but it's something I think you need to bear in mind, that it's not, humans don't just do things because they have to. It's not just cause and effect. I think we have a brain and we've always used it to our advantage.
What other kinds of stories could be developed out of Alula for content creators?
We are constantly, you know, we're constantly being approached or approaching people to create art in Alula. It's a major component of the efforts of the Royal Commission for Alula, and that is everything from modern art. You know, recently there was an announcement of pairing up with the Pompidou Centre for a modern art centre in Alula, through to promoting film and documentary making, and also promoting you know, in-house training to build capability of young Alula residents and broader Saudi residents in the art of filmmaking. So we see that as a major component, and the fact that we have this extraordinary backdrop, or as Dirk said, a ready-made a series of sets. We are more than welcome to encompass and help and support those if they are telling a story that we think is doing credit to the cultural heritage of the region.
And natural heritage too. So there are many different aspects of the cultural heritage, but then, as we've been talking about, the nature, the animals, the fauna and flora.
Yeah, and I think as a backdrop for anything historical or anything, I mean, I think had Alula been available to David Lean, he might have shot Lawrence of Arabia there. I mean, which was shot in Wadi Rum and in and around Jordan, which I think is a similar landscape. But I'm sure, yeah, anything historical, or I'm sure anything science fiction. I mean, I think it's a very versatile location for the creation of content, further to archaeological documentary or nature documentary or art, pure art films.
Let's make them.
And would you recommend filming at Alula to other producers?
I would. Yes, definitely. Yeah, no, without a doubt. And I know that there's huge investment into the film industry there right now, and they're building studios and they're training, you know, the local populace and, you know, in the various different roles in filmmaking. And so I know that there's going to be, you know, a very large studio base there, and all of the ancillary things, equipment that filmmakers need. So yeah, I'd have no hesitation recommending it. Dirk, do you have any view on that?
Let's go, let's film some more.
Yeah, no, we love it there.
Yeah, I mean, I have been filming there, I think, in the last 2 years, up to 10 projects. I mean, and the big documentaries, the 2 big documentaries took most of my time there. But it keeps on inspiring, because at the moment you think, yeah, now I've seen it all, but it really keeps on coming in every sense. And that is remarkable, because in terms of size, I mean, at least the town is not that large, but everything around it, it's magical. So I could recommend it also just to people to go on holiday. It's beautiful.
We filmed, actually, I forgot to mention, we filmed a top-end car commercial for the launch of the new BMW i7, part of it in Al-Ula, and it's probably the prettiest bit. At the new Albanian tree.
You know, earlier we were talking about the need to film recreations for, can you talk a little bit about why you wanted to do recreations?
I mean, not only because it's fun to do, because I think it was a challenge, because in one of the early conversations we had also with Rebecca, we were asking ourselves, how is it going to be? Is it, because it's, when done wrong, it's very cheesy, and we all know that. So, and I had to convince also myself that it's not going to be like that. So I think the trick is to tease, to create some suspense, to create some atmosphere, but not to give too much. For instance, I have seen it done when people are talking, then it becomes too real, then it becomes a movie. We didn't try to fall into that trap and still have the archaeological dig season as the main meat, let's say, of the film, and then just use our recreations to illustrate what we also thought it could have been. Because that's then another part. You have then ideas how to film it, but how did sandals look? How did clothes look? So then, again, we went back to all the archaeologists, and we even brought in Omer Aksoy, who was a specialist in warfare, because we were also wondering, how did spears look? How did swords look? And again, I mean, you're never 100% sure, but you can, in a case like that, you just surround it with the good experts. They give you advice, and then you try to achieve what they told you.
And his examples were mostly from the rock art, right?
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think also, and based on certain elements that he found, for instance, if he found a piece of dagger, then he could have assumed how a larger sword might have looked like. So in that sense, it's always a bit of interpretation.
Great. Well, I think that about wraps it up. And please join us for the screening of Lost Treasures of Arabia, Ancient City of Dedan, tonight at 10:30 here. And thank you for all our panelists for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicely done.